Joining me now is Republican Congressman Mike Turner of Ohio. He serves on the House Armed Services Committee. So before we get to the Ukraine news, let me ask you about the attacks on the ISIS targets. Pete Hegseth did put out a statement on social media saying more to come. Are we now in a military conflict in Nigeria? What's going on?
Well, Jonathan, this is a continuation, of course, of our conflict with ISIS. It's been around the world, Iraq, Syria. You're seeing it now in Nigeria. This was undertaken, of course, with the Nigerian government. And this is, continuation of what we're seeing of the conflict really around the world with ISIS.
It's interesting. We've seen just in the past 2 weeks, you had those strikes in Nigeria. You had strikes in Syria, also against ISIS. And we've had a continuation of the attacks in the Caribbean on those alleged drug boats, and suggestions President Trump has made that he could attack targets on the land in Venezuela, maybe even Colombia. This is a very different approach to military force than we saw in his first term.
Well, I mean, not necessarily. If you take, the linear aspects of the foreign policy of the first term into the second term, with respect to the policy of ISIS, it's very consistent, both in Iraq and defeating ISIS, and then in Syria, and then, of course, here in Nigeria. And we're of course seeing that ISIS around the world has not been defeated, but will continue to be, a target, and something that, with our allies, we're going to have to continue to respond to, or they're going to continue to be a threat.
So let's turn to the meeting today with Zelensky. What's your sense? What's going to come of this?
Well, you showed the images of Putin continuing to remind us that this is a war of aggression, as Putin, mercilessly pounds Kyiv and civilian homes. This is Putin.
He's hitting apartment complexes.
Right. He's reminding us that we can't be for this. America, when we address the issue of whose side we're on, you can't be America first and be pro-Russia. Russia is a self-declared adversary of the United States, and here they are mercilessly killing Ukrainians and trying to take Ukrainian land. So the president has rightly said, we need to end this war. But when he goes for peace, Russia wants Ukrainian land. Ukrainians have, unbelievably risen to prevent Russia from taking their land. Zelensky has led them for that. And now, as he meets Zelensky, he's meeting a man who has led his country against Russian aggression. So in this peace process, as Russia wants Ukrainian concessions, it's going to be much more difficult, because Ukraine wants, of course, assurances that Russia's not going to come back, that the West is going to give them the assurances that they will deter Russia in the future. And that's going to be difficult to give the type of assurances that the West is going to rise to the occasion to keep Russia from just reassembling and coming back stronger. I
mean, it seems like Zelensky is prepared to make actual concessions here. I mean, anything short of expelling Russia from the territory that it has seized by force would be a concession. But it seems like in this latest plan, he's willing not only to cede some of that territory that Russia has taken, but also to move back from territory that Ukraine now controls in the form of a demilitarized zone. Is there any sense that Russia's ready to make any concessions as well?
Well, not from what you've just seen last night. Remember, even on Christmas, where they were asked to have a ceasefire, Russia has not agreed to any ceasefire. Russia continues to move forward.
But they bombed on Christmas Day.
On Christmas Day. But the Ukrainians continue to repel Russian aggression. And the Ukrainians have been here before. Remember, when the disintegration of the Soviet Union, the Ukrainians gave up nuclear weapons for their independence and for an agreement that Russia would not invade them, that they would have security assurances in the future, which Russia has then violated. So now they're asking for security assurances for the future, to have their sovereignty, to have a future. Obviously, we need to be on the side of what they want, which is sovereignty. They're on the side of democracy, liberty, and Russia's on the side of authoritarianism and aggression.
Which side is Trump on?
Clearly, Trump is on the side of peace, and he's trying to balance these two forces, which is very, very difficult to bring these two parties together. But in balancing it, we have to understand that Russia's goal is to take from someone else something that's theirs, and Ukraine has to have a sense of security assurances that Russia's not coming back.
But can I just ask you, because Trump has repeatedly said that Ukraine never should have started this war, or words to that effect. I mean, Ukraine didn't start this war.
Well,
they were invaded.
Clearly.
So how does that affect his effort to try to broker a peace deal?
Clearly, a war of aggression is started by Russia, and it has been started by Russia. Yeah. And I think that Trump's sense of wanting peace is incredibly important, and I think it's a noble goal. And I think we're getting closer. I think that Zelensky's coming with a plan that is workable and that could get us there. And hopefully, with our allies in Europe that have come together, they seem to be working in advancing the type of security assurances we're going to need with the United States, that hopefully we can deter Russia in the future.
All right, Congressman Mike Turner, thank you very much. Appreciate it. A lot more to talk about this with you in the future. Appreciate it.